Hey guys, Ron Ciolfi, the Finn guy, here today to do a walk around of the T75 Hydroseeder. Just like a truck driver would do for a pre-trip inspection, you want to walk around this machine and make sure everything is safe. So the hitch should always be secure. Make sure that your bolts are secure. You may even want to open the tongue compartment and check the bolts to make sure that they're secure. You should also, while you're in here, check your chains. These are your safety chains that are going to hook up to the vehicle that you're towing the machine with. This is your toolbox, the lid to your toolbox. This compartment is where you would store your nozzles, your remote valve, maybe even some hoses for a pump. Here's your gas tank where you would fill up with, in this machine, this is a Kohler gas engine, so your unleaded gas would go here. At the front of the machine, I'm going to point to one of the maintenance spots. This is the front of your agitator. So you've got a bearing assembly here that has a grease point. It, like all of our other grease points, have a teardrop sticker that tells you how often you should pay attention to it. This says service daily. So each day you want to make sure that you get your grease gun and put a shot or two of grease in this bearing to make sure that it's always working in fresh grease. Got a step here to step onto the tongue so that when you're feeding the machine with the materials, when you're loading it, you're going to pull from the back of your towing vehicle, place them here, open this hatch, and you're going to start to drop things in. Also, you have an agitator control right here. This is going to be used by the operator to agitate the materials that are going through the machine. On the passenger side of the machine, you have your fill port pipe that goes into your fill port. The fill port is covered by an expanding gasket plug. Just remove that plug, hook up to your hydrant or your fill pump, whatever your water source is, and begin your flow of water, and then you can start to mix your ingredients. The T75 comes with an electric hose reel, holds 150 feet of 1¼ ID hose. There's a locking mechanism right here that all you need to do is pull it out, put it in this position, and then the reel will free travel. When you've pulled all your hose out and you've sprayed your job and you're ready to retract, just come back to the hose reel rewind button to pull all your hose in. Got a little bracket here to hold the hose when you're done. An electric motor that powers the reel. There's also a spool guide up at the top to assist you in getting the hose neatly back onto the reel. At the rear of the machine, we got the control panel. Starting here, you got the operating pressure gauge for the agitator. It's connected to the control valve for the agitator. This gauge is going to give you different readings depending on what you're doing. If you're running, if you're just mixing water, or even a very light slurry, is going to be reading very low. The moment you start breaking up bales, it's going to spike upwards of 2,000 or more. If it gets to the point where it wants to go into relief, you're going to have just switch directions, and then that'll get the agitator going again. But it's not something that you need to worry about having it be at 1,000 exactly. Again, it's going to fluctuate depending on the thickness of your slurry and what part of the process you're in. Before you engage your clutch, make sure that you choose your avenue of discharge. And what by that I mean, when I hit that switch, the pump's going to start running and it's going to send slurry up this pipe to the tower. It's also going to go out the hose reel and out the recirculation, depending on which valves are open. If this is closed, it's still going to travel up to this point and pack, and then it's going to exit out of the hose discharge. If this one is closed as well, it's going to exit out here. And if this one is closed as well, you've got what we call a deadhead situation. That's where the pump is spinning with nowhere for things to go, and that can lead to, I don't want to say catastrophe, but you could build up a lot of heat and you could damage your machine. So before you hit this switch, make sure you choose, where am I working with, the tower or the hose reel, and make sure that valve is open. This is the throttle for the machine. Right above the throttle, you'll see a nozzle holder. There's 3 holes there. I've got the long distance nozzle placed in here. You can place a couple of nozzles in there for when you're working with the tower. There's also a rod here that's used for clearing your nozzles. You just push the nozzle opening into this rod here, and that'll clear the blockage. I should also point out the tower is connected to a bracket. You want to make sure that that tower gets placed that boom gets placed properly onto that bracket and clipped in place when you're done, so that it stays put and secure while you're traveling. Next to that operating pressure gauge is your hose reel rewind button. Again, once you have all your hose pulled out, you can just push this button to retract the hose. Next to that, you've got your key switch for starting. You got an off, run, and start position. Once you turn it all the way to the right to start and it starts, you just leave it in the run position. Prior to starting the machine, if it's a cold engine, you may want to choke it. Okay? Once it's warm, most people would tell you you don't need to choke. Next to that, you've got an hour meter. And finally, you've got your clutch. You've got 3 positions: off in the center, engage to the bottom, and standby up at the top. The difference is, if I want to run my pump continuously, say I'm doing hose work, I want to turn the pump on and be able to go do my work, I put it in the engage position. When I put it in engage, that pump is spinning, okay? And it's not going to stop until the slurry is empty and I turn this thing off. If I'm doing tower work, I'm going to put it in the standby position. That will not run the pump until I step up onto the tower and push this clutch button with my foot. The operator stands up here, and when the clutch is in the standby position, he or she can just step on this button right here and that'll run the pump. There's also a horn button you can't see right now, but there's a horn button right here next to the bottom bracket of the platform. One last thing here, you'll see the agitator control. Remember, we did the control from up the front. It's connected. You can control from the front or the rear of the machine. Okay? Reverse to mix, forward to spray, and again, pay attention to how fast that agitator is moving. One thing to keep in mind, this hour meter is the type that will run if the key is in the on position. So the engine doesn't have to be running for this hour meter to continue to click. So just something to be aware of. So these stickers indicate the level of water inside the machine. So obviously this top one, 750, is a T75. This will hold just over 750 gallons of water. This T75 Hydroseeder is powered by a Kohler 23.5 horsepower gas engine. That engine's providing 2 functions. It's going to provide your hydraulic flow to the agitator via a hydraulic pump that's mounted on the engine, and it's also going to provide power to the pump via an electric clutch that we talked about earlier, that you're going to use to spin your pump. This is your suction line valve. The idea is, if you have a tank full of ingredients that you don't want to lose and something becomes lodged in the pump, you want to be able to pull this elbow off without losing the contents of the tank. You simply would close this valve to keep everything in the tank while you work on the pump. At the center of each wheel is a hub, and there's a dust cover. Once you remove that dust cover, there's a zerk fitting or grease fitting that you want to hit with a shot or 2 of grease. That's something that you need to do infrequently, perhaps once a year, but don't forget it. This is basic trailer maintenance. Point out a few more things in the rear of the machine. Obviously, you've got your battery and battery holder here. Got your hydraulic tank up there. Hydraulic filter right next to it. It's also an auto lubricator mounted on the pump. It's an important piece. Takes a special type of grease. On that note, there's a couple of grease points that we want to point out on the machine. You'll see the swivel up there that's got 2 grease points. On the pump shaft, you have a couple of grease points. And again, these are all clearly marked with stickers that say service daily or service weekly. Okay, well, that covers the basic components and use of the Finn T75 Hydroseeder. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you're notified each time we upload a new video. This is Ciolfi, the Finn Guy. Thank you for watching.